Welcome back, everyone. I am Zell, and it's time for another Drinking and Thinking with Zell. So you know the drill, guys. You've got 9 seconds to get your drink of choice, and I'll be right back with you. Alright, guys, so blog and print news for our sharp news this week. We have Blade Magazine. We have a knife maker that is offering 20 examples of 5 types of skinning knives. And you know that season is quickly upon us, so go over there and look at the pictures, because the pictures were pretty cool. I didn't read much of the text, but the pictures were neat. And here's just kind of a PSA. Over at TTAG, The Truth About Guns, they have a Wilson Combat Glock. True story. Now, they frame this as Wilson Combat making Glocks. Not quite the case. Wilson Combat will customize Glocks. They have custom Glock parts. They are not selling Wilson Combat customized Glocks. And I know that's confusing, but go read the article, but go over to Wilson Combat and look at their Glock section if you're interested, and it'll probably make more sense. And over at The Truth About Knives, we have an article about needing common sense hammer control. Pretty gruesome article, really. But, well, anyhow, you know the deal. And then from Knife News, we have the Illinois governor signing in the Switchblade repeal. But you need to go over there and read about that. It's a little more complicated than just signing it in. And they have listed #1 on their top-selling knives of 2017. And you'll have to go read the article. I'm not telling you what it is. But once you read the article, I have one for sale if you're interested. And for our videos, to start with, Jeremy over Simple Little Life is giving away a Foredom. He hit 100K subscribers, and not only is he giving one away, he's got a video on the Foredom, what it is, how it works, and it's one cool tool for the shop, whether you're a knife maker or not. So you'll want to get over there and watch that. And I did not link his giveaway, but if you go to his page and subscribe and check it out, you will find the giveaway. It's got kind of a neat thumbnail, easy to see. And I just linked Cedric's channel, Cedric and Ada Outdoors, this week, because Cedric's been ripping them off. He's got several steel tests, I think 3 at least. Another video, I don't remember what exactly that one was. And he's got a review of an Anso Design ZT. Be wary of that one. He's still in love with that knife. We talked about expectations a while back. I haven't watched the whole video. I just know he's in love with the knife. And, it's a good one to be in love with. Anyhow, and we have a little short video from the Fat Man. It's called Bad to the Ass. You're going to want to watch that one. It'll only take about 30 seconds of your time, and it's worth it. And the Birds are back in town over at Birdshot IV, and they have a video about the Gurus. Guru-ies? Gurus. Doesn't matter. It's kind of a neat video. Go check it out. And Nick Shabazz, not only does he have his knife gripe this week, talking about spinning pivots, but he also reviewed the CRKT version of the Graham Razel. The production Razel, if you will. And I've got one of those around here that I may review at some point, but I'm kind of glad that Nick reviewed it for me so that I don't have to. And Staza23 hits us with the Liong Mah NUK. And thank you, Staza. I skipped on those knives because there were some other things that I wanted to take care of. And you got a nice review of it. Everybody go over and watch Staza's review of that knife. And that covers it for the week, guys. Not a really thick news week. But actually it is. Some of those channels, if you go to them, there's several videos for the last week that are really good. Alex Steele from a couple of videos ago is making an M9 bayonet this week. He's on part 2 or 3 of it today. And that's another one you may want to go watch. And as always, if you didn't see videos or articles from your website, your YouTube channel listed here, probably because I don't know about you. Send me an email and let me know about you, and we'll get that taken care of. And from here, we're going to go to a camera down view. All right, guys, strap in, grab a double, and let's go. We're talking about steel today. The first thing is I want you to make a guess at what the average price is, and I did the math, so we'll talk about it at the end of the video. The average price for a piece of steel big enough to make your standard folding knife blade, standard frame lock folding knife blade. Put that down in the comments, so hit the pause button, take care of it, and then come back up, and we'll move along. Whenever we talk about upgraded steel, what are we really spending our money on? Is it worth it? Well, to start with, what we're spending our money on are two separate things. It's not the steel price, because the steel price, the majority of the time, the difference between two pieces of knife steel of different qualities is something like that. It's pennies, sometimes maybe nickels, but very rarely does it go to dollars. So what we're really spending a larger amount of money on is tooling. End mills, ball mills, abrasives, drills, and the machines that make this stuff happen, the maintenance on those machines. Because whenever we move from, say, AUS 8 to D2, the $10 or so that you spend to get the D2, I'm sure it makes Ontario a few extra pennies a knife, but what it really is doing, that $10, is covering the machines and covering the tooling for those machines. And that can be said for most steels. Whenever you move up in steel in the same knife handle, that's most of the time what you're paying for. Spyderco does that constantly with their FRN and FRCP series and all of their other knives with the sprint runs and various steels. Most of the time they charge you about $40 extra and you get the higher end steel, and what you're normally doing is paying for the extra tooling or the extra heat treat. That's the other part. And that's something I can talk a little to. Your basic steels from 440Cs, your high carbon steels, and your more basic stainlesses, I can properly heat treat those in a very reasonable amount of time. If I started it at noon, even if I did a cryo cycle, by the time it's time for bed, I'm done with that knife, and I really haven't spent a lot of time fussing over it. I've had to move it to the oven and out of the oven, and I've had to move it into the cryo or out of the cryo and into another oven and out and then back in. But I haven't, there's timers set, I haven't had to stand over it. I haven't had to actually spend a lot of time with it. And that's a beautiful thing, because whenever we move into some of these other steels, these high-end steels, we have to have very, very strict temperature control, very, very strict environmental controls. And by environmental controls, I'm not talking about hugging trees. I'm talking about the environment that the steel is in while it's being heat treated. And we have very, very strictly controlled times and temperatures for the cryo. The whole thing is very, very controlled. And there are machines that do this for the large knife companies, and it's very expensive and it's very time consuming, because whenever you go in a production facility, anything that takes time costs money. You know, time is money. So, you know, you've heard that 100 times, and that is exactly it in the knife business. Time is money. So anytime we add extra heat treat steps, it costs more. That's why that brand of knives that I no longer review, that's why their 440C is less expensive, because they do a very simple heat treat on the 440C, and they come up with reasonable 440C. Now, is it spectacular 440C? No. Pick up a 1980s Buck, or a Boker that's got 440C, or a Spyderco Cat that's got 440C, and compare it to that unnamed knife company, and you're going to see the difference. It's blatantly obvious if you put any abrasives against it, sharpening stones, belts, whatever, or just go out and use it for a few weeks and use them the same, you will see the difference. And that's no different than ZT and their S35VN versus the M390 and CTS 20CP that they've done. Those steels should be a whole lot closer, but most of the time their S35VN is pretty crappy, really. You know, Cedric and Ada Outdoors. Cedric over there has done some testing on that and how he didn't die trying to test that Anzo design knife he got from ZT, because you know I couldn't have done that. After testing two ZTs with horrible results and knowing that he loved that ZT knife, there's no way I could have tested it. It would have just ate me up inside to even start the test. But Cedric is a tough guy, and he did it, and thankfully it came out great. But that is the deal. That's S35VN and all three of those ZT knives. And you saw the variation. Well, that's learning the heat treat, and that's executing the heat treat. Some companies do it very, very good consistently. Some companies do it with certain steels very consistently. And that's what you need to figure out, is who's doing it right and how they're doing it, and understand what you're spending your money on. Because you're not spending it on the steel, I assure you, unless you're dealing with the S110V. That stuff's crazy expensive. But where should you expect to see great steel? Whenever you are getting knives up over about $100 or so, irregardless of what steel is stamped on the blade, and really we're going to go a little lower than that. I'm going to say about $80 or so, maybe even 60. You should be getting a steel at its best. That's what upsets me so bad about the standard Delica. That's not VG10 at its best, and you're giving $65 for that knife. That's why I've said it in I don't know how many videos now, and Spyderco is still ignoring me. But you should be getting a steel at its best whenever we get to those price levels, no matter what the steel is. And the other thing is, we'll take this Bodega for example. Whenever I was at Blade Show, if I had went over and talked to Mark Begg and I'd said, hey Mark, what's the steel in that knife? And instead of S35VN, he had told me that it was 440C, would I have said no to the knife? Well, probably not. I'd have probably looked at him and said, okay, well, how you doing your heat treat? Yeah, and I know something about the heat treat, not everybody does. But just putting them on the spot like that sometimes can help you. And if he told me that they were doing it blah, blah, blah this, and they were cryo it, and then blah, blah, blah temper, and I would have said, okay, I'll go ahead and give you that ridiculous amount of money for that knife. Why? Because of the knife design, because I knew it had a good steel in it at that point. And that's what you guys need to be doing. Whenever you're looking at these knives, no matter what it says on it, whether it's CPM 154, this is 154 CM, or M4, or M390, or 440C, S30V, S35VN, whatever it is, you need to be hitting the forums, hitting the videos, and finding out if that company is heat treating it properly. And if they are, then you should have no problem no matter what the steel is, as long as it's a recognized stainless or a recognized tool steel. But you should not be paying a couple $100, and Riot does not do this. We're just going to use this as an example. Let's say the base model Torrent came in D2, and you wanted the M390 model because you wanted that little bit of perceived better steel. You shouldn't be given $200 for that little bit of better steel, because there's something that a lot of them don't tell you. It's something we need to be aware of in the industry, and we need to be checking ourselves. The industry uses a lot of buzzwords to great effect. Whenever we talk about superior edge holding, okay, superior edge holding to what? Sometimes it's superior to 440C, as that is a base stainless, one that a lot of them are compared to. Sometimes it's simply a buzzword. Now, even if it is compared to 440C, what is superior edge holding? Well, you know, that little abrasive card test that they go through, if this knife cut one more card than this knife, then the marketer can say superior edge holding. Same thing with abrasion resistance, impact resistance, slightly more. And they can say superior or greater or all these buzzwords. And don't even really trust the steel info sheets. About the only thing you can trust is testing data. And some of the steels will have testing data in their info sheet. And you can trust that more than anything that some PR guy wrote on those data sheets. So what it really comes down to, guys, is these steels, everything on the table right here is a great steel. We've got M4, S35VN, M390, D2, .154 CM, and S30V. And there are others. And they're all great steels. But don't get yourself in a position where you're spending a great amount of extra money to get a named steel. Do the research on the companies. Buy the knives that you're interested in. Be careful of the sprint runs with what are supposedly higher quality steels. And do your research. And don't get taken to the bank. Because I can assure you that all of these steels on the table right now, from D2, 440C, 154CM, all of them are great steels. And they will all serve you extremely well if they have been heat treated properly, ground properly, and everything has been done right with the knife that piece of steel stuck in. And now, for what you guys are waiting on, let me get my notes out here. The most expensive steel that I looked up was S110V, and this stuff was double everything else. So this piece of S110V at the prices from a few days ago, and those prices fluctuate, so you know, if you go do your own math, you may come up with something a little different. But this piece of steel would have cost $14.45. And the cheapest, and I don't have an example of the cheapest, but that was 52100, a carbon steel. It would have been $3.23 per blade. So that put the first average, there's going to be two, so you got two chances to win your prize of nothing. So the first average is $7.82. So that is with 52100 in there and S110V. Since they were such outliers, I went ahead and pulled the S110V and the 52100 out of the average. And once you did that, the average price for a piece of steel big enough to make your normal EDC folding knife blade come up to $3.57. Now that's the average, and I can tell you that the prices would have ranged from a little over $1 to $4 something. You know, $4 and some change. I did some fancy math to figure out the average, so I don't know exactly on each and every steel. But the bar price for a, let me see, what was it? It was 4mm by 2" by 24" long bar. The bar price ranged from about $22 to about $46. So, yeah, I doubled the price, but whenever we got down to this size piece of steel, your big spread becomes a couple of bucks or less. So, think about that next time you're saying that, oh, that 440C knife sucks. Or you're saying, that my N390 knife is the most bestest thing in the whole world. There's a lot more goes in to making that piece of steel worth using than just the base steel. With proper heat treat, 440C is a wonderful steel. With crappy heat treat, any of those other steels are crappy steels. And that's just how the ball bounces, guys. We know from the S35VN can be good or bad just from ZT's own experience. And the same goes for every other steel out there. And I really hope that Cedric gets to test some good 440C sometime soon, because I would really, really like to see what he comes up with some well heat-treated stuff. Just for my own curiosity. We know here at Todd Knife and Tool that we've done some 440C and we have been very, very happy with it. Happier with it than we've been with the S35VN we've done, and spent a whole lot less time heat treating that stuff. But anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you hanging out with me for a little bit and talking steel price. It's kind of a mess of a game, but you know, it is what it is. Be aware, don't be the consumer that gets nabbed. And by the way, now that we know what this stuff costs, this knife is an absolute freaking steal, boys and girls. And you have a great day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.